camera is so far away today. We're going to give it a try. We're going to see what happens. Welcome to the Intune Tuesday message. This is actually Tuesday. It is early in the morning. And I was getting ready to put myself down for sleep and then realized that I had a conversation this afternoon or this evening with a friend that would actually be a really good message to share. So I think it's true to say that I'm hoping I'm not the only person in the world who is masterful at self-sabotage. Very skillful or highly skilled at self-doubt and abandoning brilliant creative projects before they've had a chance to actually root down and soar. So I'm hoping that I'm not the last person in the world to figure out how to transform this particular bad habit of mine. But you are the people that I'm talking to this evening or this morning, wherever you are in space and time. So I was talking with an old friend, colleague, and sometimes mentor of mine. Just caught up with this person. It has been years since we've spoken, and she brought up a podcast that I started last year. And not many people know that I do that I did this. This podcast still exists out there. It was a tremendous amount of fun to do the recordings. It was a tremendous amount of fun. And there were actually two people who popped up that I had no idea had been listening, who just offered some feedback that they really enjoyed it. Now, the podcast, it was just me sitting down with my phone and recording. There was no production team. I tried editing. I had a really, really fancy editing program on my devices, and I just decided that editing is not for me. I'm just going to put it out there raw because it's too much. It's too much to figure out. It actually wasn't too much to figure out, but I just couldn't figure out how to push the buttons to make the edits stay. Highly frustrating. So just a raw conversation about whatever was on my mind at the time. And what I understand about myself at this point in my life is that I have really struggled to believe in my interests and my vision and my creativity. So what that looks like from a different angle is that I thrived on validation. And if I wasn't receiving validation from the external world in the form of, wow, I really like what you're doing, then I didn't feel that what I was doing was worth, I'm going to say my time and energy, but it didn't come out in the sense of, this isn't worth my time and energy. Like, it wasn't conscious like that. It showed up as, I'm running out of ideas. I don't know what else to record. I don't know what to talk about, because I wasn't getting feedback, or I felt like I wasn't getting feedback. I felt like I wasn't putting anything out there that anybody else cared about, so why should I care about it? Again, the why should I care about it part was not conscious. It stopped at, nobody's paying attention, this is not valuable, and then I would stop. And I have a number of things in my life that I have done this with, and it's taken me a long time, years and years and years, for me to be able to acknowledge this out loud outside of myself. It's taken me a long time to even acknowledge it to myself, that I quit on myself a lot on some brilliant things that I find out years later somebody was paying attention to. And I could say that had I known that that one person was paying attention to it back then when I was doing it, that I would have stuck with it. But that's not necessarily true either. So I'm talking to those of us and those of you out there who have similar patterns. Your self-sabotage may look very different than mine. It may show up in an entirely different area of your life than mine does. There are other areas of my life where I am tenacious. I would say my personal relationships, teeth. um, so when other people are involved and I have somebody else to bounce off of, I'm much more able to hold on to something. When it's just me creating with the divine, creating with source, when it's just me and the unseen, I have had a much more difficult time holding on to it. There have been things that I have done very well, that I have been very loyal to myself through. My bodywork career was one of those, although there are areas in my bodywork career where I, fell off the boat more than one or two times. You may have this same challenge when, people who are trying to correct their health habits. That's a big area where we abandon ourselves. So that might be the area where you're not seeing progress, which is a version of not getting feedback from other people. And you might stop on yourself. You might quit 2 months in when really what you're trying to change needs 6 to 9 months of continued effort before you start to see gains. We have a world full of people trying to change their financial situation, and so the investing that people are doing, people want immediate results, and it all does. I think a lot of it comes down to wanting immediate results, and part of what we have to learn how to do is allow ourselves to show up and do whatever it is we are called to do, and then allow the rest of the thing that we are collaborating with to put its roots down and to start become start to become the thing, the life form that it is designed and destined to become. So what I'm thinking of there is this idea that, when two things come together, a third thing is created. Well, those two things may know what they are and what they're about, but that third thing, we have no idea what that creation is. So, two things can be two people. That's one of the obvious expressions of two things. But two things could also be your inspiration and then the physical body putting that inspiration out into motion in the world around you. And that action, so when we take that thought and turn it into action, that action plus the thought creates a third thing. So I just want you to keep that in mind. So what am I doing? What can you do? First of all, becoming aware of these patterns of self-sabotage within us is I feel very important. Some people would say we don't need to know what all of our shadow elements are in order to move through them, in order to transform them, in order to overcome them. And I definitely appreciate that teaching and that perspective. In this case, at least for me, I find it very helpful to be able to identify, yes, I do this thing, and in order to disrupt that pattern, I need to catch myself when I'm wanting to escape and jump out. So these In Tune Tuesdays, for example, again, I typically have a lot of ideas and things that are running in my mind. I've actually been experiencing a shift in my thinking over the past year, and there's a lot of if you think of one of those graph things, and then there's that line of nothing. There's been a lot of those experiences with me over the past year and a half, and I'm so when I say I have blank spaces in my ideas, I actually think there's the things that were really, really important to me a couple of years ago. They're not chattering in my mind like they have been. So I'm having to wait and watch what new thoughts and new ideas are coming up. and often sharing new ideas and new thoughts before I've had a moment, before any of us have had a moment to actually get a sense of like what they're about, where they're coming from, how they relate with us, how we carry them, you know. It can be hard to share things. So what I'm saying is, when I say I have writer's block or speaker's block, it actually feels that way. And I know that that has also been a habit of mine to say, I don't know what else to do, or I'm not interested in this anymore. That's another way we shut ourselves down. I'm not interested in this anymore. When really what we need to do is push through whatever that flatline space is, or that plateau people speak about. Clients will talk about this a lot, have talked about this a lot over the years, when, again, making health corrections, making relationship communication corrections, making meditation corrections. We hit this place in our practice with something, or our application of something, where the thing doesn't seem to change. There's nothing of interest happening. We're not backsliding, but we're not progressing. That quiet space is an important space to hang out in as well, and just to keep moving through it. So I'm encouraging us, we master former self-saboteurs, to recognize that part of ourselves with compassion, and then parent ourselves. That is a good skill to have, if you can play with that language, and coach ourselves. Okay, I know that you think there's nothing there for you, but let's just show up and see. Let's show up and see if we might be surprised. So I am slogging through that right now in a few different areas of my creative life. And I am encouraging those of you out there who maybe don't have a perfect virtual presentation. Something else that I said to this person that I was speaking with, and I don't know if I actually finished the conversation. She just let me know that she had been listening to this podcast and that she really enjoyed it, and then all of a sudden I wasn't there anymore. And I'm like, yep, that's what I do. So, but further along in the conversation, I've actually lost my train of thought on this. So I might have to pick that up in another conversation. It's gone. I don't know. I can't backtrack as well as I used to be able to either. The brain changes when we get older. So the message for today is, if you find yourself quitting on what felt like a good idea, and there's a difference, there's differences between good ideas for you and good ideas that are good for someone else and might get you excited but really don't have longevity. I am working through one of those situations as well right now. So we've got to figure out, and sometimes we do need a little bit of time. Sometimes we need to give ourselves a few hours, a few weeks to sit with an idea before we jump all in. And that is a valid approach as well. And when you find yourself giving up on yourself, just notice it and ask, what is the next thing, the next action that I can take, the next thought that I can commit to or entertain that will keep me moving in service to this project, in service to this inspiration or idea. All right. Enjoy your Tuesday. Thank you for listening. I'll talk with you again.